We've got Scott Martin here of Kingsview Asset Management and Ray Wong of Constellation, the research CEO there. Ray, and would you begin with you on all this, searching around the Mark Zuckerberg, comments. I don't know why today he chose to make them and acknowledge that the White House was pressuring him, the Biden White House was pressuring him on how it presented COVID cures and treatments. But 4 years later, and then, of course, you have the Telegram CEO arrested in France. There's a lot going on here. What to make of it?
Yeah, social media platforms are under attack, and what they're worried about is can they maintain that fine balance in the Section 230 where they're not responsible for their speech, but they might be good at policing that speech. And I think they're trying to find that middle ground at the moment, especially in an election year where there's a lot of scrutiny. And as everybody knows, almost 53% of the world's population was actually in the middle of an election this year. And so there has been a ton of scrutiny over social media platforms. What's missing is the ability to fight the misinformation, disinformation on these platforms in a third-party neutral manner. And there is, at this point, no startup, no company that's actually doing that, that's kind of serving as a clearinghouse for content, knowing that it comes from an actual source. The content might not be accurate, but if you at least know where the source comes, that would be a solution. But that doesn't exist today.
And bias sometimes is in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, Scott Martin, I was listening, some obviously conservatives are ticked off at Zuckerberg. Hey, you're a big lib, and then you didn't say or do anything when you had the chance early on 4 years ago. You'll also get liberals who will say, oh, well, we don't get our voices heard in this. And they crack down on the crackdown on Google and all. So, again, I get how that operates, but it's in full, view right now, isn't it?
It is, and it's low-hanging fruit, Neil. And I mean, how many times have we seen the CEOs of the social media companies, Meta, Google, and so forth, Apple, Microsoft, all these guys go in front of Congress and kind of have that dissertation with Congress saying, well, wait, you guys are liberals too, right? Like, we need to work on this together, and we'll take care of this, we'll take care of that, and nothing changes. And it's low-hanging fruit, Neil, from the standpoint of these governments smell money. They see money. They feel like some of these companies that are making billions and billions of dollars in profits over the quarter after quarter can pay for some of these improvements. And while they can, I think Ray's making a good point. What degree of responsibility do they have? Because the governments sometimes change their advocacy on what they want changed and what they want different as far as the platforms go. And so these companies continue to do what they do because last time I checked, they're in capitalism, they're corporate companies that want to make profits, and they do that very well. The government continues to be behind on this, and therefore when they play catch-up like this in the Telegram example, that's something that they do in a drastic measure, and then all of a sudden all heck breaks loose, as we saw with Zuckerberg's comments today.
It's interesting, too, Ray, in the break, you and I were chatting about all the expectations ahead of NVIDIA's earnings, I believe, after the bell tomorrow. It might be stuff like this that's far more of a big issue for technology, the scrutiny about what they can and cannot do and release on their websites and on their social media platforms, when we're much more focused on a chip maker and whether it can keep churning out these very expensive chips.
Well, the challenge here is we're down to a few companies that can play. They're billion-dollar companies, whether in social media because they have a billion-plus in number of users. We're down to a few companies that can play in AI because it takes billions of dollars to actually have the ability to actually have AI chips and energy and actually reach out to folks. So we are in a situation where do we truly have competition in this market? The answer is probably no. Are these oligopolies that are going to be managed well? We're not sure. And have they been politicized? Yes. And I think that's the challenge.
What do you make of the attention on NVIDIA right now? And it's one company that has all these lofty expectations on earnings, and it usually blows them away. But there's extra pressure on the company because I think, and I don't want to, I didn't come up with this the brilliant way Wong did, Scott, that, this is something that goes much bigger than this company, NVIDIA. I mean, this has something that has big effect on an entire technology industry, leaving aside the Magnificent Seven. So how do you play that?
It does, Neil, and I think it's this big hype mode. I mean, it's basically where if NVIDIA does well, a lot of these other companies will do well because that's the spend, that's the outlook, that's the future. But it's a lot of hype and it's a lot of concentration. It reminds me of '99 when we're hoping that AOL makes really good earnings, or Lucent, or some of these other companies that are long since gone by now that had to hit these numbers because that was the effect it was going to have on the rest of the market. So it's a little bit overdone to me. I think a lot of the NVIDIA success is already in the stock. We own it, of course, but we've ridden it up for quite some time. We're happy to have it here. But if things change drastically, which I don't believe they will right now, that's something that could affect the market very short term, but certainly longer term when it comes to the AI development of how we go from here.
Another big issue is this event, the Apple event on the 9th of September. I guess an iPhone 16 launch. High expectations for that, right, or what?
Yeah, we're actually in the middle of that super cycle, and we had a 5G super cycle. Now we have the AI super cycle. That's 230 to 240 million iPhones that are about to be AI enabled.
By the way, have you noticed with the 5G that your phone devices are a lot faster?
No, I haven't seen that at all.
I don't even. Seriously, I don't.
One word,
I
no.
saw it and I asked people, like, wow, this 5G, Neil, once you try it, man, you'll.
I drop more calls.
Yeah,
I drop more calls.
Before you even search something, it was supposed to already have the answer for you.
And I can't pair my phone. And I can't pair my phone. That's the other thing. I keep
it's
getting dropped on the pairing.
All right, so Scott, this didn't materialize for you, at least, right?
No, and I'm glad we're not on 5G here because this would have been dropped by now. And Neil, the other thing about AI too, with
Right.
regards to Apple, is can you guys please improve Siri? I mean, Siri and I have been going steady, as the kids say, for the last like 5 to 10 years.
Right.
Siri still doesn't even know me and doesn't know what I like, doesn't know what I like to do. I have to explain it to her every time. That's something I need to improve on as this new super cycle begins.
Well, there's competition. There's Alexa and all this other stuff, right? There's all this craziness. Scott, Ray, you're the best, guys. Thank you very much. Hillary